Welcome back to SuperWest on Sundays, everybody. I'm joined, per usual, with my fellow senior writer, Stephen Vilardo. My name is Nick Bartlett, and I'm a senior writer here at SuperWest Sports as well. And the two of us make up SuperWest on Sundays. So a lot of notable games, in the maybe not the Pac-2, but the Big Ten, the Mountain West, and we're just going to hop right into it. Not too much action happened in the ACC this week, besides for Stanford getting absolutely killed again. So we're going to start with a little spotlight today. We spotlighted Oregon last week, and this time the little light it shines over to Boise State because even though a lot of people might view San Diego State as kind of a weaker opponent, they're solid enough that they almost knocked off WSU the week prior, and Boise State absolutely decimated them by, let's just say the game was over by the first quarter. It was that bad. So with that, Boise State, I still feel is a team that's underrated, even though they have a lot of people realize they're probably headed to the college football playoff. And then Steve, I'll just kind of let you take it away with either the game, your thoughts on Boise's season, or anything that I'm missing.
Well, first off, the Aztecs have been playing a little bit better here the last couple of weeks. Kind of, you mentioned against Washington State, they almost pulled that one out. So, they've gotten better here as the season's gone on. So it's not necessarily as janky of a win, if you would, as maybe some people think, because San Diego State's starting to turn it around a little bit better, kind of starting to get a feel for some of the things, especially offensively. They're doing things better, which just goes to show how dominant Boise was in that game, because that defense was dominant. Maddox Madsen stepped up, and he kind of had to. San Diego State did a really good job, especially in the first half, of kind of taking Ashton Genty out of things. The first half he kind of had a really quiet first half. Still finished with like 149 yards on the ground on like 31 carries. So he did a lot, obviously, and he's productive. But they stacked the box, and that, especially in the first half. And I mean, he got 150 yards despite the loaded box and loaded front from San Diego State. So it was a good effort by him. But they tried to take away the run game, and the pass game was there for Maddox Madsen. He went for like 307, efficient, 24-32. I think he had 4 touchdowns. Spread the ball around to a lot of different wide receivers. So it just kind of shows that offense is not just Ashton Genty. And if you, especially against a better team, if they want to load that box and really take away the run game, they can do that. But Maddox Madsen and the passing game will still beat you. And is capable of doing so. And then defensively, that defense is just underrated. I know you're going to get into it a little more too, but you got Andrew Simpson at the linebacker, kind of the core of the middle of that group, and just really, really good. Alexander Tubner at the tail end in the back at the safety. He had an interception against San Diego State. One of the better DBs, better safeties in the country, definitely out on the West Coast. So that defense is just underrated, and they got some talent. And the front seven is solid, and they can take away a run game as well and get pressure, a lot of pressure on people. So the defense is aggressive, they're fast, they're physical, they can make plays, and the offense it's well rounded, and that was proven today or yesterday against San Diego State.
True, man. It's been a long week, and I understand. We're going actually all the way back to Friday, but I feel you. Sometimes sometimes my days blur together. And especially when you stare at a screen. You probably have more of a life than I do, but like I stare at a screen for like 12 hours on the weekends, and like sometimes I forget whether it's Friday, Saturday, or Sunday. But anyway, Steve was touching on. I pretty much agree with him. There's not really too much to disagree with unless you're a hater. Maddox Madsen. 24 for 32, 307 yards, 4 touchdowns, as Steve already said. But just to reiterate, essentially the Aztecs dared Boise to beat them with anybody other than Genty, and they did so easily. Latrell Caples, 6 receptions, 90 yards, 3 touchdowns. He was the biggest beneficiary. Can I say that word? Let's see. But there were a couple other names I wanted to shout out. I think Steve touched on the defensive depth, but if you're looking at offense now, Cam Camper, who was a transfer from IU, starting to get a little bit healthier from injury, 4 receptions, 50 yards, adding a nice little kind of playmaker element. Prince Strawn has been solid enough all year, four catches, 49 yards, and touchdown. Chase Penry, kind of a new name, 3 receptions, 28 yards. He's not a big one to remember. And as always, even though it was a quiet game for him, Matt Lauder, tight end, 2 receptions, 18 yards. So they have enough playmakers. You combine that with Genty, you combine that with a good defense, and now you combine that with Maddox Madsen, who, as we touched on last week, beat out a 5-star Malachi Nelson, and now he's really looking the part. I mean, the throws he was making against SDSU were absolutely phenomenal. Watched a lot of good quarterbacks this year. I'm not saying he's, he's not Ashton Genty, Heisman caliber, but if he continues to progress and grow and win, he could be something pretty special. And Boise has a lineage of quarterbacks, even though they might not be as notoriable or kind of as well known as other teams. You think of a guy like a Kellen Moore, who's a proven winner at the college level, and made it to the NFL. So really impressed by Maddox Madsen. Really impressed by Boise State. I think this team should be ranked higher than BYU. All due love and respect that BYU, the Cougars have absolutely held it. The BYU's been phenomenal. I'm just saying that Boise State, I think, is vastly underrated, and really I feel they're a top 10 team. Their only loss is to Oregon by 3 points. They beat a 7-1 Washington State team easily by like 28 points. And they beat a UNLV team who is damn good. And I'm going to stand on that all year. So I think Boise State is worthy of being in the top 10. I actually feel even if they had one crappy loss, one kind of slip away from them at the end of the year, they should still be put in the college football playoff, even though I know that's not going to be the reality. So I just hope they continue to win, continue to represent the Mountain West, continue to represent the Inland Northwest, if you're familiar with that. And just kudos to Boise for really, they exceeded standards this year. They're returning kind of back to their Peterson form, and it's cool to see. Moving forward here, the next game I want to touch on, or the next team I want to touch on, is Oregon. We spent a lot of time talking about Oregon last week, so I'm not going to pull up the stats and do a whole deep dive and that sort of thing. The two things I want to take away from them is, again, I guess you got to start with the negative first. Tez Johnson did get hurt, I believe, is a collarbone or shoulder injury. I didn't check up and kind of see how long it was. But if he's unable to return to full form, I do feel at some point that will hurt them in their national championship run. Not going to be a big issue in most games because they just have so much talent, whether it's Trayshawn Holden, the two tight end combination, Jordan James, the halfback, Dylan Gabriel. So obviously they're loaded everywhere. But I think Tez Johnson is that one guy who can kind of, he has a little shiftiness, like a big playmaker element, and that could prove big if you get a rematch against Ohio State or a team like that. So that's just one thing to consider. But on the positive side of things, really, they're able to hang with Michigan physically. They've been able to hang with Ohio State physically. And this is a sign that Dan Lanning used his SEC pedigree to build a team that was able to compete in the Big Ten, as a lot of other West Coast teams have not been able to. Oregon is complete. Oregon is dominant. They're still, even without Tez Johnson, I think a team capable of making the national championship. I just think at some point they'll need one or two plays from him, or someone else will really have to step up. So that's all I got in Oregon this week. Really, anytime you go to the big house and win comfortably, that speaks for itself. You want to move forward here, Steve, or you got any thoughts on
Well,
Oregon?
just real quick, you touched on it. The physicality of Oregon is impressive, and I mean they're built like an SEC team or a Big Ten team, and that's being shown right now. And defensively, I think that's a team that's underrated defensively too. I mean they've got a lot of talent there, and they force disruptions as well. So that's all I really got on that one. I know we touched on Oregon a lot last week.
Yeah, definitely. And I'm pulling up the box score right now of ASU Oklahoma State. Do you have any kind of quick initial thoughts while I get this box score up, or you want me to take it away? Because I have some thoughts on the game with or without the
Well, the fact
stats.
that they held Ollie Gordon to 20, and I know Ollie Gordon and Oklahoma State are both struggling this year comparatively. Oklahoma State's really struggling, but this was a big win for Arizona State, and holding the back of that caliber to 25 carries or 25 yards rather is thoroughly impressive. And the quarterback play out of Sam Levitt this year has been off the charts for that team. He's spreading the ball around. They got good receivers. And Tyson Johnston, I think, is kind of or Jordan Tyson rather is their leader, kind of in that aspect. And he's a speed guy that can get out there and make things happen. And Cam Scatterby he can do it out of the backfield as a receiver, running the ball too. So, I mean, that offense is a very well-rounded offense. And I think kind of some of the struggles that they had last year, of having to plug some people into some spots that maybe they weren't necessarily comfortable, is paying off in dividends this year. And the defense is really getting out after it. And that's a big thing. So huge turnaround in Tempe. And I think there's still room for them to get even better as well. But excellent season so far. And I think it's going to turn out to be a really good one.
Yeah, I mean they're overperforming everyone's standards. I think they were picked near the bottom of the Big 12, and I mean you touched on the big three: Scadaboo, Sam Levitt, and Jordan Tyson. Pulling up their stats for the game. I mean Sam Levitt has been the guy. I mean they were looked bad in their one loss to Cincinnati with Jeff Sims, who was a 4-year starter in his own right out of multiple schools. Or I shouldn't say 4-year starter. He's been around for 4 years. But you're looking at Sam Levitt, 20 for 29, 304 yards, 3 touchdowns. I know Oklahoma State's defense was struggling, and the Cowboys are really having a down year. I don't care. Anytime you go to Stillwater and get a win, and I'll actually kind of finish with that point on this segment. So let me just get through the stats first. Cam Scatterbo, as Steve touched on, dual threat, multidimensional. 23 carries, 153 yards, and a touchdown. 4 receptions, 121 yards, and 2 touchdowns. This is in Big 12 play. This is a guy who, in my opinion, should be considered. You can't put him in the Heisman running or front runner, but he maybe should be getting a seat at that party. He's really that good, and a performance like this kind of it puts him on the map. That again, those stats. Let me read that one more time in case some of you guys
He
really did.
needs some Doak Walker love for sure. So as the best running back. I mean, I don't necessarily know he's going to win that one either, but he needs to be a finalist or semifinalist for that one for sure.
I'm glad you explained what that was too, because there's no way that would have computed off the top of my head of what that award was. So best running back for sure. No, and that is a really valuable point. And you're looking at again Scadaboo on that point again, 23 carries, 153 yards and a touchdown. Okay, that's all right. 4 receptions, 121 yards and 2 touchdowns. That's dangerous. We're talking Marshall Falk territory if you're an NFL fan. So just really impressive. And then rounding out that trio, Jordan Tyson, 8 catches, 81 yards, and a touchdown. And then this is what I just wanted to say about this matchup is you were facing a Mike Gundy Oklahoma State team, and I think Mike Gundy is a vastly underrated coach. I've said the word vast. I need a new synonym, antonym, whatever. But they were playing for their, I believe, it was their 18th consecutive winning season, and in theory, I think it still might be possible if they won out and won a bowl game. But that's virtually not going to happen now. And Arizona State was still able to go into Stillwater and get that victory. I've seen Oklahoma State a couple times this year. Ollie Gordon is still good. Even in a down year, he's dangerous. He can take over a game. Brennan Presley is good at wideout. And the main problem for Oklahoma State is really Alan Bowman is what, college kids get paid now. Alan Bowman is a bad quarterback. He's a 7th-year player, and he is bad at the game of football. And it's that simple. So bottom line, Arizona State was able to take advantage. To Alan Bowman's family, I wish you all love and success, and I hope you find success in life, on or off the field. Ain't nothing like that, but I got a job to do, and you're bad at football. But for Arizona State, again, I just think really impressive victory. I think people are going to look at heading into Stillwater and facing, a Oklahoma State team in a down year as an easy victory. No, that's tough. That's impressive. And again, the Sun Devils continue to do it and make that push along with a couple other teams in a really confusing Big 12. The next game we're going to talk to, let's see what I got up here on the docket. Oh, we're actually going to hop back to the Mountain West in a game that is going to be overlooked nationally because it always is. My feelings on Fresno State if you've been following my work for a while. Always a good team, always tough to win in Valley's Children. And we had a really kind of unusual result in the Hawaii-Fresno State game. So, Steve, you want to take this one away?
Well, yeah. So Hawaii, I mean, the 14-point comeback in the fourth quarter to win the game, and it was fueled not necessarily by the offense, but by the defense. And I mean, I think Hawaii forced a punt on 7 consecutive drives in the second half, which, I mean, Fresno State's got a talented offense. I mean, that offense is explosive, and Mikey Keene is a really good quarterback, and Sherrod's a good running back, and they got weapons on the line, weapons on at the wide receiver spot. So huge effort by that defense, and it was led by Elijah Robinson. I think he ended up with 10 tackles for the Rainbow Warriors. But huge road win too for Hawaii, getting it done with defense. Braden Schrager had a solid game. I mean, he's going to have that. But they got some production out of the running game too, and overall, I think some sacks of Schrager kind of reduced the total ground numbers. But the running back position, they got some production out of Tylen Hines and Landon Sims, both of them, which was very good to see. And that's what Hawaii needs to have. I mean, they need that. I think we talked about it last week. We talked about it pretty much anytime we talked about Hawaii, how as good as that passing attack can be with Timmy Chang kind of directing it and Schrager at quarterback, you got to get some production out of the running game. And it doesn't even have to be huge. It just has to be enough numbers where you keep people honest. And that's what the running backs did. Those two kind of combined. They had some big runs. I think that Sims only had like 5 or 6 carries for like 38 yards or something. So I mean, it was I think they were both right around 5 and 6 yards per carry. Which is what you need out of that offense just to keep things going. And then defensively, we talked about Robinson and the sacks or the seven straight punts for Fresno in that game. But I think they held Fresno to like 191 total yards and something like 19 yards on the ground. So huge effort for Hawaii, huge win on the road, going in there, getting a win, and doing it in comeback fashion. That's even more impressive.
Yeah, and so as this is kind of like why being a little sports nerd, I like, kind of following week to week as best as I can because you look at the week one result with UCLA Hawaii, you think I think it's like 16-13 UCLA won and Hawaii had a really dominant defensive performance. At that time, you look at that and don't think much about it. You're like, oh, UCLA sucks. That was the general consensus.
Even
Um,
in that one, UCLA just didn't run the ball, and that was the problem for UCLA all season. But yeah, so go ahead and finish your point though. But yeah, so it came down to run defense.
Exactly, and it just Hawaii is better than people realize. You're looking at UCLA now the last 2 weeks, heading into Rutgers and getting a victory, heading into Nebraska and getting a victory. I was going to spotlight this game. Maybe this is their moment to shine. So just let's give UCLA their love mid-session. But hopping back to Hawaii here, essentially this win, and I know people nationally may not kind of follow Fresno State as close. It's tough to go into Valley's Children and get a victory. That is a proud program. They're talented this year. I know they have a little bit of transition at the head coach position, and I think that might be showing itself a little bit this year. I don't want to. I don't want to call any names or hate on anyone yet. It's too early. Nothing catastrophic, but let's just say things aren't going exactly as Fresno planned. Um, with Tedford stepping down, or I believe is due to health concerns at the beginning of this year. But you're looking at like Hawaii, and these victories are starting to add up. I believe you're looking at the Mountain West, still not necessarily. They're not going to win the conference by any means, but this is a team that could have folded and really went to like 3-9, 4-8. Now you're looking at a team with the outside shot of making a bowl game, and it's really just the way they're doing it is essentially again we all know about Shager and the whole Shager bomb kind of Shaker bomb NIL kind of takeover, but again Hines 12 carries 66 yards, a defense held Fresno to 20 points, and Nick Senecal 12 receptions, 113 yards and 2 touchdowns, and all around just again just a really good performance from Hawaii. And you're looking at a team. This has always been my second favorite team in college football. Of course, they have to knock off a team I really like in Fresno. I don't like every team like that, guys. Kind of just random affiliations, but again, just a big win for the Rainbow Warriors. Let me
Nick,
give them.
if you got those stats in front of you too, what was Landon Sims's final total? What did he have? He was at like 6 carries for like 30 something yards. What did he have? He averages like 5 point something yards a carry, I think too.
So 5 carries, 22 yards, 4.4, which again, to outside people may not seem like a lot, but when you're facing a tough physical defense like Fresno, just being able to move the ball, provide a nice spell for Hines and pick up 4 yards per carry, it takes a lot of pressure and a lot of it takes a lot of just the big hits off of Hines.
And
So
and yeah, like you said, I mean, it was if you combine those two, my quick math was something around 80 yards on 17 carries ish, which that's really all that Hawaii needs. I mean, if you can get 4.5 to 5 yards a pop out of those guys, maybe 20 times a game, that's really all that this offense needs to really be successful.
exactly. So you're looking again, Hawaii, a lot more complete team than people realize, sitting at 4-5 now, and again, really again with a shot to not win the Mountain West, but to do enough to make themselves notable for future seasons. And again, a real shot of making a bowl game. And a loss here that would have felt virtually impossible. So, shouts to the Rainbow Warriors, my second favorite team, randomly forever. Moving ahead here, the next game we got two games, Steve. I think I threw in the random shout out to UCLA mid Hawaii session just because it popped up on their schedule. So I think we'll leave UCLA Nebraska alone. But again, one more time, UCLA back to back wins in Big Ten territory against Rutgers and Nebraska. That's notable. And if they can continue performing well, they're not there yet, but if they can get a couple more results, bowl eligibility may even be real for a team that I think was like 1-5 2 weeks
Yeah, and
ago.
I'm going to touch on them real quickly though, because that the line play was excellent yesterday, and you can see it the last couple of weeks, even in the loss the week before. Ethan Garbers is just more comfortable back there. and he's playing some really good football right now. And I mean, yesterday for sure, you could see the comfort level that he had. He busted off like a 50-plus yard run in there, had 300-plus yards passing. We don't need to get into the stats too much, but just the comfort level of him and the way that offense is producing, and it's got to do with the line, I think, playing better as well. Uh, they're becoming a really good team now, so a much better team. I mean, than they were, and so yeah, like you said, kudos to UCLA.
Yeah, and the final two games in our docket, I guess one shout out. I think Steve usually does the random shout out. Want to make sure I shout out Wyoming. Big win over New Mexico. Caught me off guard. I really thought Wyoming was going to fold this year and be one of those teams that really got one or two wins. They did beat New Mexico, and I believe it's actually on the road too, down in so that's a really impressive result.
It was it was on the road, and Wyoming scored 49 points, which I think we talked about New Mexico. It was a 49-45 game, but uh, if I think when I wrote my preview this week, it was if Wyoming's not going to score in this week's game, they're not going to score against anybody, and they did. They got it done. So kudos to them.
Yeah, no, yeah, definitely just a surprising result. And then I think we touched on kind of went on a Mountain West little spur there. Spur is not the right word. Don't you love vocabulary and trying new words mid show? But the next game I think we'll hop to before we kind of finish the Colorado State Nevada is UWSC. I have nothing but an angry rant about this game. So if you want to start with logic or do you want to hear my rant first, your call.
Well, it was a big win for Washington, and I know you're going to kind of go on a rant about Washington here, but Washington got the job done, which they needed to, because the loser of this game is really kind of USC right now. They've got uh, they got UCLA and Notre Dame to end the year, so a couple rivalry games. They need to pick up 2 wins out of those, out of the last 3 games to get bowl eligible. And Notre Dame's obviously a pretty good team. That's going to be on the road. UCLA is a rivalry team that's playing much better than we said. So who knows? So USC could have a really an uphill battle. But had Washington lost this game, they would have been sitting at what 4-6 or something, and they would or 4-5. They would have needed to win 2 of their last 3 to get bowl eligible. And I think their route was. Nebraska or something. I forget who they have, but they have Penn State and Oregon on the schedule too. So those you got to think those 2 would be losses traveling to Penn State and then against Oregon. So it would have been tough for Washington for sure to get 2 wins as well. So huge result for the Huskies and keeping their bowl eligibility alive, or bowl hopes alive, I should say. And USC's kind of got an uphill battle now.
Yeah, and I guess before I go my rant, I should say, I guess because everyone, you got to talk about USC, it's just kind of the way the life works, so whether it's fair or not. Miller Moss just isn't making the plays when it matters. They have enough talent around him, and I'm still confused. I still think Lincoln Riley's an excellent coach. Still confused why they're not running the ball a little bit more with Woody Marks. He pretty much destroyed UW's defense in the second half when they decided to do so. Washington really struggles to stop the run, and for whatever reason, USC wanted to test their basically rated nationally passing defense, and it was 20-7 at halftime. Didn't make a lot of sense. Sometimes you just need to keep things simple. Again, in the second half, when they gave the ball to Woody Marks, the game really flipped quickly. So that's enough for logic here because I'm really angry. So I just don't understand what the hell Jed Fish is doing right now in any in terms of, I guess I always got to remember the old school rule. You hear me say it twice. Start with the negative first. I just don't understand what the hell he is doing right now. There's plays where, let me just summarize what's happened to UW this year. Against Rutgers, they should have beat Rutgers, but they had a man run onto the field on like an interception or a touchdown or something that really would have entirely flipped the game, pretty much put Rutgers away. And somehow that happens. That falls on the head coach. Whether or not it's his fault, if it falls on the head coach. They lost that game. In a game, I still feel that the Huskies beat Rutgers 9 out of 10 times. I still think UW is talented. I pick them every week up until this week because I felt this team is good. But then this week, it just took it to another level. Because again, one coaching mistake, I respect that. Things happen. I'm a youth coach. I know Steve does some maybe similar work. But so mistakes happen. That's part of it, and I get that. I respected it. Fish's play calling has always been excellent. The record was good enough where I kind of let it slide. But this week, he's doing this Damon Williams, Will Rogers switch, and a lot of college coaches do it, but you need to be able to do it right. And he's doing it wrong. He did it absolutely wrong. His players saved his butt this week. Really, he almost ruined the game for his team, and it was frustrating to watch. And then he just made an egregious mistake at the end. So if you're not kind of following, and Husky Twitter was all over this too. Essentially, Will Rogers was dominant, and I've been hard on Will Rogers all year. I think he's made bad throws. He hasn't gotten it done when the time's been right. But today or yesterday, he was great against the Trojans. He was completing every pass. He had a couple touchdowns, 0 interceptions, protecting the ball, not taking sacks, just playing a really elite level quarterback game. And this is coming from a big time hater, Will Rogers. So on 2nd and 8, it's like 2014. USC made a nice touchdown drive to kind of keep themselves in the game, switch momentum. 2nd and 7, they bring in Damon Williams. I get it. I respect he's fast to switch it up. For those of you who don't watch UW carefully, Damon's their speedy backup quarterback. They bring him for read options, triple options type plays. So they do it on 2nd and 8, doesn't work. 3rd and 8. I'm like, that's fine. Whatever. You're going to bring Will Rogers back in, right? They do it again on 3rd and 8. Will Rogers has earned that damn throw. He's been perfect in the game. They do it again on 3rd and 8. Again, USC stops it because Danton Lynn is a good defensive coordinator. This isn't USC from last year. And then you bring Will Rogers back in on 4th and 8 and expect him to save your ass. So, of course, Will Rogers misses the next throw, as any human would, because they're wondering if they're going to be benched again for no reason. That was terrible. That is not how you do that. That's how you shake two quarterbacks' confidence and almost cost your team the game. Will Rogers basically missed the next 3 or 4 throws, and UW did not look good for a while. It sucked the energy out of the stadium. As a Cougar, I'm willing to admit UW is almost swore there. They have a wonderful fan base, some of the best on the West Coast, and I'd argue a fan base that can hang with a lot of fan bases in the Big Ten and SEC. Oregon and Washington both have that within them. But again, the fan base got quiet. That's how you know you messed up. And again, if it wasn't for Carson Bruner making a phenomenal interception because Miller Moss is overrated and plays for USC, essentially UW loses this game. So it could stop there. It could stop there, and I probably would have never made this rant. I would have just been like, again, that's a small mistake, no big deal. But here's where I lost it and why I'm sitting here yelling into the screen right now. And Steve, sorry, because I'm talking for too long here. But here's where I lost it. At the end of the game, UW is running the ball and is putting the game away pretty easily. Pretty freaking easily. It's 3rd and 1. They've ran the ball twice to Jonah Coleman. All they have to do is hand the ball off to him one more time. The game is over. Huskies run out the clock. They win in a nice, easy fashion. But no, instead, after a timeout, Allen Iverson, after a timeout, this ain't practice. We're talking about after a timeout. They bring in Damon Williams again. I'm still mad. And they get they have a 12 man on the field penalty. How in the hell does that happen after a timeout with the game on the line? We're putting in your backup quarterback for some stupid package when you have Jonah Coleman, who is an absolute monster, one of the best running backs in the country, and you can't hand it off. You take the game out of your quarterback's hands twice. You almost cost your team the game, and you're lucky USC again folded and can't finish anything in the fourth quarter, or else you could have been fired. It was that severe and that bad of a blunder. As someone who lives in Seattle, I'm going to be out in the Seattle public going to the Seahawks game today. I'm curious to see if there's any talk about that. Again, I'm a Cougar, so I have a little bit different perspective. But as someone who likes good football and just seeing young kids get an opportunity, I felt the game was taken out of his hands. But with that, you end with the positive. Bottom line, Jedd Fisch is 5-4 with a completely rebuilt UW roster. And in college football, sometimes you just find a way to win a game. As long as he never makes that mistake again, I forgive him. I still respect him as a play caller. I think he's elite, just an elite offensive system. You're seeing how Arizona is doing without him. So Jedd Fisch still a solid enough coach. But if he makes this mistake one more time, I actually think it's fireable. That was one of the worst coaching performances I've seen in a long time.
And if you look at their coaching staff, and their staff is a talented staff. I mean, they got a lot of really good coaches, and I'm still thoroughly impressed with the defensive staff that they've put together. But if you look at it, I mean, you got Fisch is calling the plays, obviously. I mean, Jedd Fisch is the play caller during the games. Brennan Carroll's the offensive coordinator. Then they have a run game coordinator, and Jason Kafasi, and then Jimmy Doherty is the passing game coordinator. So essentially, I mean, I know a lot of these people get coordinator positions. That's the title, and it comes with a pay bump, and it's a good excuse of why this guy's getting paid more than the other ex coach, but whatever it might be. But it just seems like you've got a lot of people with the designation of coordinator there that are, almost too many cooks in the kitchen, if you will, in some sense, some aspect. So I'm sure it works for him, but I think sometimes maybe, as you're kind of saying, maybe that's you get a lot of ideas flowing through the headsets from different people that have the title.
Yeah, 100%. And again, I've got my anger out. They're 5-4. Whatever you want to say, they're 5-4. They knocked off USC, and what you kind of were right in a game that would have eliminated the Huskies from bowl contention. Because if they lost to USC, they're not going to have the confidence to beat Penn State or Oregon. There's a zero, and I'm with you. I have no idea who that game is in between. No, I think actually it might be UCLA, so that's not even winnable. I mean that's not even a guaranteed win anymore. Winnable is the wrong term. But again, bottom line, I got my hate out, my anger out. Did not understand those calls for the life of
It
me. But
is
again,
it is UCLA. They could play at Penn State, then UCLA, then at Oregon. So those are the last three. So
yeah. So yeah, you're 5-4, and things are
and
okay. But I just hope to never see that mistake
and
again. And if it does happen, I think that Damon Williams should just be the starting quarterback because you're taking the ball out of the hands out of a kid again who I've hated on he played marvelous yesterday. I'll just leave it at that.
And
So
back to USC real quick. Then it is Nebraska that they play. So their final three are Nebraska, UCLA, and Notre Dame. So, I mean, Nebraska's got their struggles right now, but you never know. I mean, Nebraska's still got some talent, and USC's got to win two of those.
yeah, no, thank you for pulling up a final USC stat because as the world goes, if you don't put enough LA in the show, they may cancel you. No, no. In all seriousness, I got love for LA. My sister went to college near there, not exactly in LA, but close enough. And then the final result we want to touch on because we got to end with love rather than hate. I'd talk for a while there, Steve. You got any kind of final thoughts on Colorado State, Nevada?
You know, I mean, just Colorado State's getting it done, and again, they've had some injuries. They're getting it done with their defense, which is good to see. And I mean, lo and behold, they're 4-0 now. They're bowl eligible. They're 4-0 in the Mountain West. Could be in a could end up facing Boise State in the Mountain West title game. Obviously, a few weeks out from that, but just a really good turnaround season from Mike Norvell. And I know I've been kind of hard on Norvell the past couple of years, but he's done a phenomenal job with this team, especially on the defensive side of the ball, and getting a big win against Nevada. And from Nevada's standpoint, the special teams have been awful all season long, and yesterday might have been one of the most awful special team plays ever, where Colorado State scored a touchdown on a kickoff because nobody from Nevada decided to catch the kickoff. It wasn't an onside kick or anything. It was a deep kick, and both return men went up to block, and nobody was there to catch it. So, yeah.
I retweet. Thank you, Barstool. You're gonna get a little love here for no reason. Thank you, Barstool Mountain West, for putting that play out there because I retweeted. I saw that, and yeah, man, it's a tough year for Nevada, and I feel for Brendan Lewis because I was a big hater on him, and he's actually improved a lot. He's actually doing a pretty good job for Nevada this year. But again, you're not going to highlight the losing team, unfortunately, as much. So some final stats here. Really, you said it, Steve. It was the defense, and that catches me off guard. Even you're looking at 38 points, but the stats are really small. Braden Fowler Nicolosi, 9 for 15, 157 yards. Avery Morrow, 18 carries, 77 yards, 2 touchdowns. Always like seeing the halfback get two on the ground. I think it's good for the whole team. And then Caleb Goody, which is an awesome name, 2 receptions for 66 yards. So, you got any final thoughts nationally in our region, in the world, in the NFL, in MMA, or even volleyball?
I have got some final thoughts for sure on Penn State and James Franklin. Luckily for folks in Happy Valley, that will have to wait another week because my battery is not in good shape for a long rant out of me to end this show. So my computer battery, that is, and I am not, obviously I'm not sitting in my living room with my computer plugged in. So, but yeah, another big loss for them, and another issue with some players' behavior and sexual issues that are uh, not very positive for Penn State and for James Franklin. And I will just say, I'll get into this rant another day, but I know in 2011 when I saw a similar situation at Vanderbilt when he was the head coach at Vanderbilt and at Miami, and I think Randy Shannon might have been at the U at the time, and the process was handled 100% better at Miami than it was at Vanderbilt in 2011 or 12, whatever that was. And I remember that summer thinking to myself, "Wow, this is odd that Miami's handling a player a discipline far better than Vanderbilt." So, but I think that goes along with that head coach. So there you go. That's my short version of that rant. And then yeah, I guess get out and vote this week too, people. Yeah.
I second that. Get out and vote for whoever your candidate is. I'm not a huge politics guy, but vote for whoever the hell you want. Just make your voice heard. And then lastly, because if Steve's computer battery's dying, my mental battery is probably already gone. The last thing I got to say is we're gonna hop. I think that's pretty much everything in the college football world. The national media has called my Seattle Seahawks fan base soft. I will be going to the game today, and I will make damn sure that my voice will be uncomprehensible for work. And there is another synonym word choice that made absolutely no sense. Bottom line, I will be screaming my freaking head off, and hope the Seattle fans do the same. Let's get a little Big Ten, Washington, Oregon, Utah, BYU, any other great fan base I could think of down south, SEC. Let's replicate that because Seattle historically has always had that. So this has been Super West on Sundays, everybody. Really good week. And the final shout outs again, good work from Boise State. Good work from Oregon, kind of holding it down. Arizona State, Colorado State, and Hawaii are kind of the big winners of this week. And yeah, thank you guys for tuning in as always. Like and subscribe. This has been Super West on Sundays.